Today we have an amazing opportunity to talk about balance. Balance of two different worldviews. On the one hand, we have a New York Times columnist who claims the world is flat. Now this may come as a surprise to some people like, say, Christopher Columbus. But what Friedman means by flat is to suggest that the advances in technology have allowed anyone, anywhere, to participate in economic global development. Regardless of whether you're in a rich country or a poor country, your opportunities are the same in a flat world. On the other hand, we have the United Nations. The United Nations, the 193 member states who claim that not only is the world not flat, but half of the world's population is in such a dire state of affairs that we need to create goals. 8 different goals to help level the playing field. Goals around hunger and poverty, universal education. And so our question today is, how do we begin to balance these things? How do we begin to balance the purpose of the UN goals with the profits of a flat world? How do we begin to balance the mission of lifting half the world's population out of these dire situations with the markets that enable us to do that in many cases? How do we balance collective well-being with our own personal well-being? And the answer in part is through integration. The integration of two seemingly disparate things, two different things that don't make sense in our own mind when we push them together. Allow me to provide one such example. Social entrepreneurship. So how do we take entrepreneurship that we know, innovation, creativity, imagination, but how do we take that and channel that not for personal gain, but rather for society's gain? That is, how do we take that imagination and tackle persistent social problems, problems of hunger and poverty in education, and how do we do that through innovative solutions that are sustainable, that help lift these marginalized populations, half the world, to a more level playing field? In 2006, we looked around the academic world, and social entrepreneurship was a very new idea. It was occurring, sure, at Harvard and Stanford and Duke, Oxford in the UK, all at the graduate level. There was nothing going on at the undergraduate level. In fact, I called Greg Dees at Duke, who had founded 3 of those programs, and I said, what does undergraduate social entrepreneurship look like? He said, I have no idea. No one's doing it. Now, some people may say, that's a dumb idea, and I said, perfect, that's an opportunity. And so that's what we did. We began developing a program in undergraduate social entrepreneurship to build a world-class program in teaching, research, and practice. And we knew we couldn't do it alone. We knew we would need partners. So we identified Bono. Now, Bono is a heck of a musician with U2, and he's even a wonderful humanitarian. Well, it turns out he and his wife are also social entrepreneurs. They have built a business called Eden that focuses on economic development in developing countries, specifically Africa, through the apparel business. Now, we just had one small problem to solve. How do I get the Time Co-Person of the Year to the cornfields of Oxford, Ohio, and we'd be all set? So, we did what anyone would do. We sent an email. And guess what happened? Right, nothing. So we sent another, and same result, nothing. So I picked up the phone. I called their PR person in New York and said, look, I don't care if you tell me to get lost, but please hear me out. I didn't get your email. Okay. I'm going to send this email, and I'm going to stay on the phone, and I'm going to ask for your cell phone number, and I will call you every single day until you give me a response. I honestly didn't get your email. Okay. I send the email. Not an hour goes by, and I get an email back. It says, I'm in Africa with Bono right now. Love the idea of collaborating, of building a social entrepreneurship program that partners with our apparel company. And there we were off and running. We created a partnership with Bono's company, 100% student-run social business. The youth of today learning social entrepreneurship by doing it, and in the process, creating economic development in Africa. In 6 weeks, our students turned an idea into a reality. They took an idea that was nothing. We had founded it on this market research. Now, mind you, I'm an entrepreneurship professor. Our market research was this. It's an apparel company, and college students buy T-shirts. That's infallible. How could we not make this a success? And we were off and running, and it turns out it worked. So in 6 weeks, they go idea to reality. In the next 6 weeks, the executive team, the woman who runs the apparel business, the CEO that emailed me from Africa, and Bono's wife, Allie, come to Oxford, Ohio. And our students present to them in a boardroom meeting, not just how do we build and develop this small pilot program, but how do we scale this to campuses all over the country. And while she was there, remember, we're just launching. We wanted a little awareness. We pack an auditorium with 750 people and turn away 500 people to hear about this new thing called social entrepreneurship. Now, the way it works is this. Our students gain social value from my perspective because they learn. They learn by doing. Social value is also created in Africa through the sale of the T-shirts. Every time a T-shirt is sold, economic development, grower to sower, the entire supply chain is produced in Africa to help with economic development. But we don't do this for free. We tack on a margin. That's where the financial piece comes in. But that doesn't come back to me or to our students. Rather, it goes into our program to continue to build and grow and develop the program. Now, mind you, there have been rewards. Our lead student here was at the Clinton Global Initiative. Her co-panelists were the president of Tufts and the founder of Kiva, and our student. Needless to say, that came in pretty handy when she was looking for a job. But it also helped our program immensely. Here's a picture where we won the first Ashoka Innovation Award. Greg Dees, the guy who founded the program at Stanford and Harvard and Duke, hands an award to us saying, we're doing innovative things in this space. And we got a little PR along the way. And the PR is important because it changed forever the trajectory of the program. Our second partnership came with a guy named John Wood. And John likes to claim that his claim to fame, if you will, is he finally beat Bill Gates at something. He left Microsoft to change the world before Bill did. John was trekking through Nepal. As he was trekking through Nepal, he comes upon a school. As he said, it's a school and a library in name only. It has very few books for hundreds of students, and the books are locked up. As he's leaving this village, the headmaster says to him a line that he says will forever change his life. Perhaps, sir, someday you'll come back with books. So John did, and what he shows, he puts books on the back of a yak. Well, his first yak attack has now turned into 1,000 schools and 10,000 libraries across the developing world. So John came to share his story with our students. And when he did, something amazing happened. Our students responded immediately. They said, we want to do that. In 30 days, our students raised $37,000 to build a school in Nepal. And that was just the beginning. We then went and saw the lives that were touched by the building of schools in Nepal and Sri Lanka. And we didn't stop there. We've now sent a research team. Next month, we'll be there for the third time working on not only how do you do this, but how do you scale this? How do you get greater community participation, not only for Room to Read, but for the field of social entrepreneurship. And our last partner is named Greg Van Kirk. Greg last year was named the Latin American Social Entrepreneur of the Year by the World Economic Forum. And the reason for that was threefold. His model is transformational, and it's transformational in three ways. First, it creates access of basic products and services to rural areas that have never seen this before. Imagine, in a rural village of Guatemala, you now have eyeglasses when you couldn't see for years. Imagine a solar lamp is brought to you, and you now have light in the evening. This is what his organization does. And the way they do that is through micro-entrepreneurs. Women like Yoli Garcia, who was considered a second-class citizen until she became a micro-entrepreneur. Today, she trains micro-entrepreneurs to go out across the world to begin to take these products and services. And our students are a part of this. They will go and spend 8 weeks working side by side with micro-entrepreneurs. It's one thing to learn about social entrepreneurship in Oxford, Ohio. It's quite another thing on the ground in Guatemala. To learn, to see, to understand, and that's the model that we're after. To date, the impact has been profound. More than 100,000 villagers now have basic products and services. Hundreds of interns, hundreds of organizations that are now participating. And it's expanding around the globe. 6 different countries now: Guatemala, Nicaragua, Ecuador, South Africa, Haiti, Dominican Republic. And we're continuing to try and push the idea of sharing that knowledge with the field, as we were recently featured in Forbes. And the idea here is, how do we continue to do this? Greg Dees, when he handed us our second Ashoka Award, said, "Stop hogging all the awards." And I knew we were finally getting somewhere. But this isn't just happening here. This is now happening on hundreds of universities around the world. And it's happening outside of that. Jacqueline Novogratz was featured on the cover of Forbes magazine. It's now moving into the financial markets, where there's consideration of social impact bonds, a social stock market exchange. And multinational corporations are now doing this, not only worried about profits, but also worried about things like rural development. But the question today isn't, what did we do to try and balance these worlds of social entrepreneurship and level the playing field? And the question isn't just around what's going on in the field of social entrepreneurship. The question today rather is not what did we do, but what will you do? Thank you.